This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
Prime Minister Trudeau is in Seattle at the moment. Linda, hoping to lure American tech dollars across the border.
And meanwhile, the U.S. stock market's all over the place, turning sharply lower amid worries about this big Trump debacle lately and whether that's going to derail the agenda. This all over the firing of FBI Director Comey. Is that good or bad news for Canada?
Well, with more on this, let's bring in Michael Campbell. He's the host of Canada's top-rated financial show, Money Talks. Catch it Saturdays on CKNW. Now, Mike, let's start with Prime Minister Trudeau. He is at the Microsoft CEO Summit. What is he hoping to bring back to Canada with him?
Well, first of all, I'm going to give him credit for a couple of really two important things he recognizes, and that's that economic growth is the only way to solve, the deficit challenges we have, unfunded liability problems. And you know what? Not a lot of politicians or some of the public don't seem to understand that. But, come on, none of our challenges are solved without higher levels of economic growth than we have right now. A weak economy doesn't help anyone. One of the biggest pieces of bull, by the way, peddled in politics today is that somehow we're actually going to tax ourselves to prosperity. We can't. And I mean that literally, like it's a fact. We can't. Every tax increase restricts economic growth and job creation. That is a fact of economics. So when a politician stands there and says, I'm going to raise taxes, inherent in that statement is let's lower economic growth. But again, incredibly, I just think a ton of us don't seem to mind as long as those taxes are getting raised on someone else, and that's a big mistake. And the other thing he's recognizing is that how do you grow your economy? Well, you attract capital. You bring money in. And that's why he's in Seattle. He wants to encourage, some foreign capital in that tech-specific area to come up and see Vancouver.
Although, the Prime Minister going to a Microsoft forum, how helpful really is that?
You're right. That's not how decisions are going to get made, but I think it does help in this environment when you got a head of state that says your business is wanted. Come on, it certainly beats having a party leader spouting sort of anti-business rhetoric or talking about raising corporate taxes or businesses are ripping off the public. And we do get plenty of that in Canada, so I think that's the check mark, but you're right. In the end, any decision to where to invest your capital is done for a ton of reasons. And the good news, by the way, is when you look at these businesses that are so easily portable now, and that's tech, and that's the film industry, we have a great infrastructure, including talented workers. We got that low loonie, which really discounts the cost of our labor and services. But one more thing, and it's back to that Trump agenda, tax is a major consideration in determining where investment capital goes. That's why the NDP in British Columbia introduced those film tax credits for big U.S. companies in the 1990s, and the Liberals went right along with it after it. Individual taxation, by the way, should be a consideration here, will be a consideration where they move their business. We should understand that, though, because we're talking about talent. That's why when the federal Liberals raised income tax rates for anyone earning over $200,000 would have to be understood as a negative for attracting talent. Right now, you got the BC NDP says let's raise taxes for anyone making over $150,000. The Greens want to raise taxes for anyone making over $108,000. Those are negatives for attracting the tech dollars and the tech talent.
Let's talk about the U.S. today. Stocks are now closed. Obviously, it was trending down for the better part of today on the back of Trump's agenda, including the reduction in both corporate and individual tax rates, which are meant to be coming. This has all kind of been derailed with the whole Comey situation. He's heading overseas next week. What are you looking at right now?
Well, you're absolutely right. We have had this rise since the early hours of Mr. Trump's election. The stock market has been going up.
This is the biggest drop in 8 months, right?
Yeah, well, today's is as you look at that kind of stuff. And yet, here's the deal. All of that rise, or much of it, let's say, was primarily based on Mr. Trump's going to get his tax changes through. There's going to be, maybe not quite as important, but there'll be a big spend on infrastructure. So you're right. With the drama that we're seeing right now, the market is saying, you know what? Maybe this stuff's going to get delayed if it gets through at all. And I think it just gives people a real opportunity to take profit. They're sort of sitting there going, let's say they got in November, and they're going, hey, I've done some pretty darn good stuff here. I don't like this uncertainty. I'm getting out of the market. I think that's some of the selling you saw today. Here's my worry. I'm telling, for myself, I'm urging people, you better be very cautious here. In this marketplace. We had a really significant drop, and it changes some of the technical aspects. It might be get more selling. We'll see.
It's like crazy town south of the border. Now they're using the I word, impeachment. Some Democrats, I even heard some Republicans starting to voice that. I mean, what does that all mean?
Yeah, you're right. I heard John McCain say that, a couple of Democrats, congressmen. This would be terrible news for the stock market, by the way. Now, it's not that impeachment proceedings are new. I mean, Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, but they throw a level of uncertainty that even today, with all the shenanigans and drama, et cetera, do not have. If you start those impeachment proceedings, you go further on that, you could produce a major decline in the markets. That could be the excuse they really look for to sell off. Plus, I think it would really hurt the U.S. economy at this point. So that's why I'm coming back to it. I'm saying let's be very cautious, here. I think what's going on is noteworthy. You've got to sit there and assess, do I have the appetite for this? Do I want to have the risk appetite?
Yeah, you say stay and look at it. What is the backlash for Canada if this happens?
Well, I don't think a weak U.S. economy is good for Canada no matter what. Now, by the way, this is one of the reasons I was really critical during the provincial election of these silly claims that my platform has costed. Think of all the things that are out there right now that can change the BC economy, change the Canadian economy. First up has got to be softwood lumber. We saw our first layoffs in Quebec, by the way, because of that dispute. Mm-hmm. But this thing goes on much longer. You're going to start seeing job losses in British Columbia. Nobody took that into account in their platform. We always talk about NAFTA. Well, we should, because it could be a big negative. Again, the uncertainty of NAFTA. 52% of BC's exports go down to the U.S., so any disruption's obviously not a good thing. The other part, I think, is, and I would do this myself as an investor, I'd say, why don't we wait and see how that settles out? So otherwise, we might be getting some capital investment or ideas to grow a business or an industry, et cetera. They may be put on hold because of this. And none of that uncertainty was factored into our election platforms. And that's why, my goodness, I needed hip waders and a shovel to get through some of the stuff I was hearing.
All right. Michael Campbell is back on your radio Saturday morning with a brand new episode of Money Talks. Listen to old episodes online at cknw.com. Mike, until then, thank you.
Thank you.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980 CKNW.